together.
you.
Okay, so let's move from the big picture of conventions and go down to a more personal level of your own gaming. So,
Uh-huh.
when
Yeah.
did you start gaming? What got you into it?
Oh, I was in. This is gonna sound like a lot of gaming stories. I was in seventh grade, the Mendocino Junior High School, and I was in the library, and there were some guys sitting at a table, and they were all talking in very hushed tones because it was the library, and I couldn't tell what the heck they were doing. There was one kid, his name was Clayton Weber. Hey Clayton, I haven't talked to you in ages. Um, and he was running a game, and a friend of mine, Alex, who's still a very good friend of mine. He was one of my groomsmen at my wedding, we're still very close. But Alex was playing in it, and I was like, "What are you doing? Can I play?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure. We've got like a gnome tied up in a bag. You want to play the gnome tied up in a bag?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that sounds great. I'll be a gnome that's tied up. Awesome." I don't even remember what I was doing. I just knew I could not do anything because I played this character who was tied up. And then I kind of figured out enough that I was like, I'm gonna make my own character, okay, guys? And I was like, I'm gonna make something no one's ever thought of. I'm gonna make a half elf ranger. Yeah, because that's so original. And I came and like I climbed up in a tree and I got shot by a crossbow and died. And so then I was back to playing the gnome in the sack. And I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna stick with this gnome in a sack thing because that seems to be keeping me alive. And I mean, like every proto gamer, right? I was enamored with the idea of, what can you do? You can do anything, and and really just never stopped. There was a period when I was in college where I started my own business. I started a computer shop, and I had this kind of dearth of gaming. And I think it was a couple years where I didn't game. And then I was just dying. I hated it. And I started gaming with some of my coworkers, which is weird to GM for your employees. I don't ever recommend it. Um, and it kind of got me, back excited about it again. And that time, I dove in really hardcore. Like I when I was younger in high school and in college, I played a lot of games, but I didn't really think about them that much. And it was then that I started listening to podcasts, and I started sort of like, really thinking about the games I was playing, and that's kind of what got me into trying other systems and really exploring the gamosphere, and also playing other types of games. I played a lot of Magic at that point, and got into more board games, and that's sort of when I kind of blossomed as an omni gamer, I think, and sort of lost the notion that you've got to be one type of gamer or another.
Yeah. So, well, um, so since you started gaming, I assume the game you were talking about was Dungeons and Dragons, or that first one.
Oh, the
So,
first one, yeah, that was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Yep, first edition. Although I think like that summer I met some kid. My dad was staying on a boat, and I met some kid, and we played basic D&D, and I was like so tripped out. I'm like, "What do you mean I'm an elf? Like, what's my class?" I was so blown away. So I did have this one experience with basic, but yeah, pretty much I really started with AD&D first edition. I still have the books because of course I still have the books because I'm a gamer. So of course I never give any of that stuff up.
yeah, I think I've still got a few D&D old school things in here too. I've got the rules cyclopedia, which I'll never get rid of, I don't think.
Nice,
Uh,
nice. Yeah, we treasure them.
yeah. So have you, since that initial contact with gaming, how do you think the landscape of gaming has changed? You've started, what new things that are exciting to you uh, that's that's come across your gaming table?
Do you mean just recently, or do you mean since in my 28-year tenure as a gamer?
Let's go with the last 5 years. What developments then? How about that?
Sure. I've been super excited to see what I think is finally the end of the question of is gaming dying, because for so many years it seemed like people always wondered whether or not the gaming industry had any legs. It's like, oh, and it was always on the tide of how Dungeons and Dragons was doing. And I think that by D&D sort of being displaced as the 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 only big kid on the block, um, and that came in the form of Paizo really being having a very strong release in the form of Pathfinder, but it also came in the form of like a really large small press movement with that's really thriving, where um, people can make games and make money doing it, and there's enough of a community built around it that if you make a good quality game and you connect with people to show it to them, that people will play it and people will buy it. And so I don't know if that's specifically in the last 5 years, but it definitely feels to me like um, you look at the Kickstarters for games like Shadowrun, and you see them just skyrocketing. You look in Numenera was huge. Of course, Fate Core was very successful, and you can see that the issue with gaming with the industry ever being threatened all had to do with people not being able to kind of round up the audience. Like there were all these gamers out there, but it was hard to communicate with them. And I think in this area of social media and of gamers being so well connected, and of gaming being so transparent, of a lot of the stigma of gaming being reduced. Like people ask like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm playing a board game. What? I'm playing a role playing game. What was that again? Role playing. And like I finally be like, we're playing Dungeons and Dragons. And I was super embarrassed about it. And now when someone asks me to do, I'm like, I'm doing collaborative storytelling. And like, what's that? I'm like, it's a role playing game. And like, what's that? I'm like, it's like Dungeons and Dragons. Like, it's not the metaphor I want to use right off the bat, but it's not what I'm ashamed of. I'm super excited to talk to people about gaming. And I know that there's people that know nothing about it that are rolling their eyes, being like, oh my God, this is some nerdy activity. But as many times as I get that, I think I also get people looking kind of intently like, what are you talking about? What is that? You do that? I just had a friend that I had never gamed with. He knew I gamed. It wasn't a secret or anything like that, but he had never shown any interest. And his wife told me, she's like, oh yeah, Avi said he was kind of interested in playing a game. You think we can play a game? I'm like, of course we can. And that weekend we came over and we played a game of Apocalypse World together, and it was great. He was a really creepy brainer, and I feel like gaming is so out of the closet now. It's so connected that the notion that gaming is dead will hopefully never come back. I don't think it ever has really been dying, but I think without the ability to convey the statistics and to convey all the offerings out there, that there was a perception of it dying. And so I'm very glad to see that gone. And I also think that for a long time in the wake of D20, there was like, well, if you want to use like an open source rule set, there's D20, and everybody made all these D20 games. And some of them I thought really had some like great potential. I really loved Spycraft, the first and second editions. I think Pathfinder clearly has been very successful, but it was kind of like, well, D20 is your offering, and now you've got Fate Core as a very solid system to back things. You've got games that are powered by the Apocalypse as a very solid system. You've got a lot of people exploring areas like, how can we mix role-playing games and board games? What if we took board game elements from them? What if we took card game elements? And so I think people are exploring a lot of new spaces that weren't considered conventional role-playing games, and it's less important to be like, this is exactly a role-playing game. It's okay to have a game that feels a little bit like it's a board game, feels a little bit like it's an RPG. So I really think the industry has blossomed. I think we're developing. I'm gonna add on a question to answer,
Sure.
if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
The thing that I want to speak to is where I'd like gaming to go in the next 5 years, and this was in my last episode of Narrative Control with Luke Crane. We were talking about development of gaming, and that was an interview with him. So I was uh, doing a lot of listening and responding in turn. But since you're interviewing me, this is my opportunity to blab at length. So here I go. The the topic came up of a game of Dominion specifically, and I looked at Dominion and its effect on board games and the way deck building games and victory point scoring games, which Dominion is not necessarily the first in either one of them, but it's certainly, at least amongst deck building, it's certainly like really made that a huge game element. Um, the speed at which the components of that game were dissected by the board gaming community, and people were then able to build off of those components rather than saying, "Oh, this is a Dominion hack." It was, "This is a game that uses deck building. This is a game that uses deck building and worker placement. This is a game that uses these identified components." And I think that the speed with which board gamers can identify a mechanic and then figure out ways to use it in different ways is amazing, and that's where I want to see role players get to. I want to see the conversation move away from, is your game traditional or indie? Is your game, like that whole political discussion about where your game came from, and focus on what does your game do mechanically? What does it accomplish, and what's interesting about that? And then how can we farm those mechanics out to be used in other applications? How can we take your cool idea, deconstruct it down to its basic roots, and then make that a tool that everyone else can use when they're doing game development? And I think we're getting there, but I think part of that is going to be the disassociation of the game itself. Like, we have to be willing to say, like, I don't really care about this game. Like, I might not be a Dominion fan, but I like deck building, and I can see how deck building can be used in all these different environments. And so that's really what I'd like to see, is a focus away from the political aspects of a game and on to the mechanical components and how they can be reincorporated into other systems.
Okay, thanks for that question to yourself. And
Sorry, I just
no,
had to keep
it's
going.
something that I kind of wanted to ask you anyway, so it works out for me too.
Excellent.
So, quick, I guess, top three. What games are you playing right now? What's in the household?
Let's see. Most recent games that I have been playing with any frequency. It's been really dungeony for me recently. After playing a lot of really feelings games for a long time, a lot of Don't Rest Your Head, a lot of Dogs in the Vineyard, Monster Hearts. My recent games I've played with significant quantity have been Torchbearer. I played a lot of Torchbearer. I'm developing an adventure for Torchbearer using the Saga's license. So hopefully Stone Dragon Mountain, which is being edited by Tor. I don't know how I got Tor to do it. I think it was all the begging, but Tor is working on it with me, and I'm very excited about that. It's been about 6 months in development, and I'm very slow at developing my own stuff, but that is in the works. And so I've played a lot of Torchbearer. I've been playing a regular campaign game of Pathfinder, which I never imagined myself doing, but I've been loving it. It's a bunch of story gamers playing Pathfinder, and our characters are 201 woefully unloved. All of our characters have some horrible love story gone awry. All of them are different, and it's quite beautiful, very magical. And I've been playing a decent amount of Dungeon World. So, like I said, lots of dungeon games recently. Just played the other night. We just played Lasers and Feelings. Before that, we played Until We Sink, which is part of Norwegian style. And like I said, just the other day, I played an Apocalypse World game. So I still think I'm getting a pretty decent variety. I've figured out that I play a game based on the average of the last 7 years with my actual player reports. I play a game once every 4.8 days.
It's a good amount of gaming. I
I
am
think so.
slightly
I think so.
envious. So, all right. So on the issue of developing and things, let's talk about what you do at Evil Hat. What is all that about?
I am the Evil Hat project manager. I'm no longer the only project manager. We just hired on a new PM, Steven Baja. Bazia. Steven, I apologize. I'm butchering your name. Steven is just started, and he is taking over a few projects for me, which is great because I'm definitely at the point. Currently we have 50 projects on the roster, and that's too much to have everybody reporting to me directly. So it's nice to have some backup. But what I do as the project manager, and even with Evil Hat, I wear several hats. The Evil Hat. Ha ha.
Evil Hats. Yes.
Yeah. So as PM, I draft up a schedule for the game development. That's taken me a really long time to figure out what a realistic schedule looks like because when I started, there were none, and it's been a lot of reverse engineering of projects that we've been on to figure out what needs to be done. I've taken several project management courses and read up a lot on it. I had some previous experience, but not nearly on this scale. So that I've been playing a lot of catch up in that regard. I will write the schedule, then stay in regular contact with all of the folks working on it and making sure that everybody's staying on it, or if they're not staying on it, that we're adjusting the schedule accordingly, that we have all the resources we need, whether those be writers, editors, proofreaders, artists, graphic designers, etc., and keep things moving along. And an interesting thing that I found as I was pushing projects along was that the more I got into them, the more I was driving a project. And so often I would suddenly be part of the creative team. I would be on meetings discussing mechanics and rules and setting, and I would be weighing in on things that weren't really necessarily part of a project manager's perspective description. And also when we would come to an impasse, folks would look to me to sort of decide what to do with a product, and I said, "Wait, I'm the PM. I'm not the creative insight here." And so another hat that I wear in at Evil Hat is that I'm one of the 5 members of the head, which are sort of the staff employees of the hat, and collectively we are running the company, but planning for its future as well. And so I was able to talk to Fred and Rob and Carrie and Chris, and I addressed that we really needed someone in charge of every project, a creative developer who would have the master vision of a project, who would be a writer or an editor or serve some function on it, but that the creative director would ultimately be the person to give direction to everyone, all the other members of the talent on the team, and push things through. And that took a little bit of work off of my plate because I wasn't sort of being the driving force, but also meant that there was someone to make decisions when we came to an impasse. And then out of that, we also realized that we needed product developers, someone at a very high level at the top to say, like, this product needs to do this, so that the creative director doesn't get a crazy idea about a game and sort of go spinning off somewhere that doesn't necessarily meet the company's goals. And so we've officially assigned product developers to games. And doing that kind of infrastructure building has made the process so much easier because there's so much less guesswork about what needs to happen next or who's responsible for things. And so that's been for me, I've been just watching the company grow and been really, really excited about how our capacity has grown as we become more efficient. Previously, Evil Hat, before the Fate Core Kickstarter, previously Evil Hat would release 2, maybe 3 products a year. Like I said, now we have 50 on our roster that are in development. It's pretty cool. It's pretty exciting. And the last thing I do is in fact, the way I got hired on the hat was doing web development. So I was part of the process behind building the current website and the current interface. So I do a lot of the back end web stuff, which isn't really needed too much anymore. A lot of it's just putting up product pages, which any of the staff can do. But I was part of the original kind of configuration of our current design. So keeps me busy. Keeps me very, very busy.
Sounds like it does. Okay.